There he is, the
Yo,
legend.
what's up, man?
The legend himself. My God, dude, we have so much to discuss. Let me get the intro off very
Yes.
quickly. Welcome, everybody, to perhaps the greatest episode in the history of Untitled Podcast, episode 8. Two film book nerds just are going to have an hour and a half miasma of discussion. So if you're not into it, or if you're just boring, maybe this one's not for you. But if you like those kinds of things, I think you're gonna really enjoy this one. Josiah, I haven't spoken to you since
Yeah, dude, since high school.
I I was looking for a picture to use for like the podcast, and I found I was like, I don't think I have a picture with you. But then I went on my Facebook. Let me send this in the Discord
Oh, I
here.
know exactly what you're talking about because I was just about to suggest that.
With Brandon and Carol.
Yes, Mr. Ahern's class, eighth grade.
Oh yeah,
Dude.
that's the one that I was gonna use. I think that's the
Oh,
only
I know
picture I have
exactly
with
what you're
you.
talking about.
But what a legendary
Yeah,
pick. I mean, 2012, December 13th, I believe that was
that's
uploaded.
crazy. That's crazy.
It is kind of crazy. How have you been, man? Since I mean, that's God, it's like what 8 years ago. I mean, so
Yeah.
much has changed for you.
I'm good. It's going good. It's going good right now. Overall, past 8 years, I would say, um, enjoying life.
Yeah,
getting done what I can, you know.
right. Before I even like because you're studying film up there in Iowa. Do you have like any idea
Yeah.
like where you're gonna go after school? Or
Yeah,
what
I'm
do you
moving
mean?
to Chicago in the fall.
No shit.
Uh, so I've been scoping out video production jobs, and the idea is to work as a PA on a lot of television sets and just get
Uh,
my foot in the door,
yeah.
and simultaneously work on any sort of production stuff that I can make some money with. And yeah, ultimately, it's just I Chicago. The idea there is just like getting into a big city,
Uh,
experiencing it all, and then meeting other people who are just passionate about films that just want to write and make cool movies. And that's the idea.
I was gonna say, did you ever consider like L.A. or New York at all?
I have, but the reason I chose Chicago is because my aunt lives there, and I'm going to be able to stay with her for like a
Ooh, okay.
year. And so that's the plan. So I can live with her and kind of get my footing. And then ultimately it's going to be, I'm going to end up wherever I end up. I'm going to be going wherever the work is. So I
Yeah.
imagine New York will be a spot. LA, certainly, if I manage to get a gig or some sort of opportunity out there, or really wherever.
They're so fucking expensive out there, dude. For no reason. I mean, I guess a good reason, but like just
Yeah, it's so oversaturated with people. I mean, that's why I'm kind of hesitant to just like jump out there and
yeah, yeah,
go
yeah.
to LA, like you live in the life, whatever. But I also know myself well enough that I could easily get so burnt out just doing the grind of PA work,
Uh-huh.
like gig after gig for such low paid, like basically getting coffees. And that's something that you have to do if you want to be in the industry to some extent. But I know that that's the sort of thing that'll burn me out. And what I'm finding in my last semester of college, and just like as I, grow old, is that
Do you
ultimately,
feel old?
well, I feel like, I've been reflecting on college, of course, because the last semester, and like I've
Right.
learned so much since being a freshman. I've gained so much insight. And, there's that life, or there's that ultimate question of, is film school worth it?
Right.
And that's a whole discussion on its own. But ultimately, that for me, that boils down to, it's worth it if you network and if you um, utilize your resources. But
Right.
um, geez, what was I going to say?
I think you're talking
What was
about
I?
you were learning you've learned so much about, or you reflected on life or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. On the past 4 years, having learned so much, I know that that film school is definitely worth it.
Mm.
Um, I was gonna, that was going somewhere, but I forgot where it went. Anyway,
Getting old, I guess. Let's see the train. The joints are weak. Dementia.
Jeez, yeah.
No, I mean, it's funny you mention that because, yeah, I always when I watched. I mean, when I heard that you were making this short film, because I remember this hit on Twitter. Gosh, maybe a year ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And at the time, you know, when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's fucking cool. And you know, I got a million other things. I was like, oh, well, that's cool. And then I kept following it and following it and following it and following it, and then eventually, I think you had released that teaser trailer or something.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, dude, like, fuck. And then, yeah, I just watched the whole thing, and I'd love to get into that in just a second. But before we do, I want to get it out of the way. I just think what you did was so cool, you know, to go out of the comfort zone and to network with that many people, and to kind of, because I thought it was when I saw that you had it premiere at this little place, I was like, man, that is the fucking coolest thing. So it's like, I don't know what film school is like. I want to go there maybe one day. I don't know what I don't know if you're like a median or like you're above average student or whatever it might be, but I think personally you've gone well and above and beyond like what I think most people, at least at our age, are doing. So that being said,
I really appreciate that.
Hey, well, that's just the first of many, but let me kind of, I want to talk about it because I just watched it, and the first question I got to ask you, boss, do you have like a dolly rig?
We used a gimbal for a lot of that steady cam
Okay,
stuff,
dude, I was going to say, holy
shots.
shit. Those shots themselves came out so clean.
Yeah.
Which I was like,
and
fuck.
That's due to a lot of planning, a lot of like working out the shot list, and then on location going through each shot, deciding what it's going to look like, and then on set another level of screen where it's like, okay, now we're on set and this car's in the way that wasn't in the shot 2 shots ago, like we got to adapt.
Yeah.
So what it boils down to is like being over prepared and being in super like in tune with Jake, the guy who was the cinematographer on this production, Jake Salter. And so that's what it came down to, was like we spent hours and hours in a Zoom prepping before the shoots, and then he'd come up a couple hours before the shoot and we'd walk through it. And yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, being in tune means basically just like those moments where we don't have any time to really discuss and figure out how we need to overcome this, you know, instance of problem. And all we have to do is like get the shot, and in the realm of things we've got.
So I mean, in the course of filming, how many days did it take you guys all together to film?
It took 11 shoots.
Okay, wow.
So that was our first shoot was late August, and we wrapped on November, I want to say 10th, but early November.
Right. Yeah, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, it was a shoot every week. I think there was one time we had a break of like 10 days between a shoot, but other than that, it was like an average of 7 days between each shoot.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because I mean, what I was so amazed by, and again, I've never done anything quite to this level, but even smaller level, trying to make something, when you write something, you have to think about who the fuck's going to play, you know, the role. In my case, it's always been my friends, you know, they're never like, and no disrespect to these guys, I love them, but none of them are like really passionate about the film or acting or writing. Was everybody in your film like something from like film or acting, like majors, or was it kind of just a hodgepodge of people?
Well, so obviously Alex is the main role.
Yep.
I kind of knew Alex in high school, but he moved in to my apartment, and I had initially brought up this idea to him because he's acted before, and I don't remember the timeline of this, but it was before he had moved in. So this was 2019, and he had said if I was working on a project, he'd love to act. And I was like, and this is when I think at this point I had already kind of had the idea of Off Purpose. And so I told him, yeah, man, I'm brainstorming a script like right now. So like when it's done, you can act in it for sure. And that would be awesome. He was like, okay, cool. And then so I ended up writing the script and sending it to him. and he had no idea what he was getting into, and for the most part, neither did I.
Right.
But it ended up working out, and so yeah, for the Alex's role, that was pretty simple. I mean, he had acting experience, and he just like fit the type. So after that, I was just like, for all the writing, I was imagining Alex and all this, and then imagining how I was going to direct him and like best use his ability for the role. And then as far as the other roles for Eric, well, besides Ted Buckley's role.
Yeah, I was surprised to see Ted, by the way. I didn't. When I saw him, I was like, holy shit, Ted fucking Buckley.
He's a theater student in Iowa, and I was telling Alex, this is when we were super early on too, because we had started shooting, and we had like first couple of shoots, extensively, we had almost nothing planned for the rest of the shoots. So we just like kind of started, and we're like, and my motive was like, well, it'll come together with time and work, of course. But so we started shooting, and I didn't even have the other roles filled yet. And so I was talking to Alex one night after a shoot, and I was like, yeah, man, we really need to find somebody. I had put casting flyers up all around Iowa City. I had been doing a bunch of posting online, and nobody really fit the type. And then he was like, oh, yo, Ted is a theater student. And I was like, okay, there we go. That's exactly, because they're friends, they know each other, and so that's exactly,
yeah, kind of already gets that
chemistry
on
for
there.
the role. Totally. And then Sam, who plays Eric, the blonde guy, he saw my casting flyer, and so that was the way he got involved. And then Loretta, who plays Jessica, she saw the casting flyer as well. And then the role of Tyler, the guy, or Nick, who's played by Tyler, who tries to rob Alex. That guy saw my post on Facebook. And then the dude who plays the guy towards the end.
Yes, the mafia boss. I was going to say, that guy fucking killed it, man.
Yeah, he's a pro. His name's Patrick Albanese. He's a professional actor in Des Moines. He does commercial gigs and all that. So he's a friend of my dad. So I was able to, this whole film was about calling in favors, and so he was willing, and it seemed like he enjoyed it. That was our shoot. That was our shortest shoot by far. I think that was like a 3-hour shoot, maybe 2. We had that done efficiently for the sake of him getting back to Des Moines. But yeah, Patrick, Sam's a film student, so he had a little bit of acting experience. Ted definitely had the most, but everybody else was essentially like first timers, as myself. So
yeah, kind of. I even in my notes that I took, because I'm just a fucking nerd, I had that written for that mafia guy. I was like, not that anybody else was poor, but there is such a clear difference from like a professional to like someone who's like semi-professional. And man, that guy was like, I was like, holy shit, where the fuck did Josiah find, this guy?
Yeah, there's a distinct difference, and it was apparent on set too, because this is like my first time directing, and I was every shoot prior to that one, I was kind of like really having to give a lot of
direction and stuff,
adjectives, and action and direction, and then when he showed up, he read the script. He had read it before, but he read the script. I gave him context for the character, context for the scene, and then like he gave a performance, and that like threw me off guard. Not that nobody else gave a performance, but he was like really taking it, and he was giving it like the mannerisms. He was giving it like the expressions and the minute details that were really all working. And I was like, for the most part, I was like, just keep doing that and we'll be good.
Yeah, he was, I thought he was incredible. But it got me going back to kind of what I was saying earlier, because this was your very first film that short film you've ever created, or have you made stuff before this?
So I've kind of been calling this my first real production.
Sure.
But I made a short film my sophomore year with Jake Salter. It's like half the length of Off Purpose. That I was calling my first real production, but this Off Purpose is actually my first real production. Like, cause once you get into it, you know how much you learn, and you know how much is really there, and of course how much time I spent on it. But I think my first short film is one that I made in high school in Mr. Walker's class.
Right.
Like a little horror short.
It's always a horror short. It's always a horror short for everybody.
Yes.
Well, I was going to say...
It's easy to do.
Oh, yeah, it's easy because the script doesn't need to be anything crazy. You just got to make it scary somehow, and everybody likes being scared. What was I going to say? Yeah, I mean, when I saw that it was half an hour, I was like, holy shit, because I've never done a half an hour anything.
Yeah.
But for people, I mean, who don't know, I mean, even making like 2-3 minutes something, I mean, that's still a lot of work. I can't even imagine. That's like that's 10 times the amount of work you got to put in. How long did you do, like a storyboard for it? I'm just curious, how long was your storyboard if you did one?
I storyboarded some of the shots, but storyboard was something that, like, as I was prepping and doing a lot of reading and watching interviews and watching films, kind of like gathering my resources to enter into pre-production, I kind of concluded that, sorry, I don't know if you can hear my girlfriend's cat, but...
Oh, you're okay. I don't think I can hear it.
That? Okay.
I'm not sure what it sounds like, but I think we're okay.
She's rolling around in some paper.
Oh,
paper.
That's okay.
Anyway, yeah, so I had kind of concluded that storyboards wouldn't be that necessary for this production. And so the shots that I really wanted to make sure we got right, and the shots that were kind of complicated to describe to Jake over Zoom, I storyboarded. But our shot list is super elaborate, and we had backup shots, and I think we averaged. So you would label it like scene whatever number, and then A through Z.
Sure.
I mean, each scene definitely we got to, like, I don't know, like Q, R, so somewhere in that range,
man,
quite
like
a few.
Hundreds or something you're talking. If you had 11 shoots altogether, yeah, holy shit.
Oh, totally. Oh, yeah. I used to know it off the top of my head, but the total gigabyte amount of just video is nuts. Because, I mean, we shot it in 4K, so that also adds a lot. But, I mean... I think over the course of the shoot, we averaged probably, I want to say, like 5 takes a shot.
Right.
There's a lot of variables going into that, but oh yeah, hundreds of files for sure.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think people like understand how much planning and how hard that actually is to do. And then on top of that, like when you can have all the planning in the world, but when it comes down to it, when you're on set, that's when when it actually matters, because all that work can go straight to shit if you don't know what the fuck you're doing.
Oh yeah.
So I admire that it's half an hour long, because I know how long that probably took to shoot plus edit and all that other stuff. Which yeah,
and I mean it sort of just happened that way when we were originally planning this idea that I had, working on the script. Jake and I and Max Kinsler, who's helped a lot on sound and a lot of pre-production stuff and the writing. There's a short film festival in Iowa City that has a maximum of, I think, 15 minutes. So it was originally, I was kind of like designing this short around ultimately being submitted to this festival, the student film festival. But as I was writing, I mean, one page of script equates to 1 minute of screen time, and I could not get it under 15 pages.
Right.
And so ultimately I just wrote a draft where I included everything that I wanted, and it was, I think, 35 pages. And so I trimmed it down from there, trimmed it down a little bit more, and then I was like, honestly, this story could be a long form. This could be a straight up
feature length. Yeah, I was gonna say
traditional feature length.
This isn't like I would say a criticism, but yeah, I felt like the actual themes that were in there, with Alex's family and stuff, like you could, if you wanted to, I feel like you could make this an hour and a half.
I definitely agree, and I shouldn't say we could have, but the story that was there, the story about Alex, the story about Thomas, the story about Eric too, it's there, and I've written it all. I've written all of it. I wrote out in prosaic form extensive backgrounds on all these characters that went back to like their sophomore and junior year of high school. So all these guys have all this background that I've written about them, about their relationships, about their like going to college, about their formative years and whatnot, and their motivations behind it. And so that kind of helped guide the writing process, but it is all there. And it's I did my best to make it apparent throughout the film, but it is lost on the runtime for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and I was gonna say, going off of, because as you said, I'm also the same way. Like when I'm writing, you know, traditionally, if you want to submit like a script, like you ever heard of that? There's a website called the Blacklist Community. You like can submit a script there.
It sounds familiar.
You get like professional people to read it. You got to pay them to do it, of course. Nothing's fucking free, but it's like really helpful. But when you submit your script there, they want it no longer than 90 pages. And what I constantly fucking struggle with is the fact that I already am really bad at dumbing things down. But it's like, how the hell do you write a really, if there's so much stuff, you know, you want to get like 5 or 6 different themes in there, and then you want to get all these subplots. It's like, you can't fit it into 90 pages. And it's like, hardest challenge, I swear.
They're on like the expedited side of things, where they're not interested in anything slow. They're interested in something fast paced that's like a horror or a easy to shoot thriller,
right?
Or a drama that's gonna like be a quick turnover and make them some money.
Yeah, I mean, what I have to say, and again, I think what sucks with film, and maybe you'd agree, I guess not sucks, but what's interesting with the field is, you know, if you want to be a doctor, for example, it's a pretty straightforward path. I mean, albeit it's a really hard path. You know, go to medical school, you know, do your, what is it called? Where you're there for 2 years at, I forget what it's called. But I mean, it's a pretty straightforward path. Residency, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, you do all those things, and then from there you kind of work clinic. With film, and I guess just kind of in general, writing, acting, whatever, there's like a million different ways that, you know, your career can go, and there's not really a straightforward path.
Yeah. That's why I love watching interviews and reading about the life of film directors, because it's not always, but a lot of the cases, it is wildly different, and it's always very compelling the way they finally make it. And the way I view it, I mean, I forget who originally had this line of advice, but it's just all about doing it your own way. So whether that's really going to the industry, like going to LA and grinding through the industry and getting the open spot as a producer, or whatever creative role on a set, or numerous other ways to do it, it's all about doing it your own way. And really, it's just about the hustle.
I was going to ask you too, because I know, like I mentioned, we went to high school together, but I don't think I ever recall, or at least maybe I just didn't notice, because we were all kind of fucking weird in high school, to be fair. I didn't know that you were 2012. I didn't know that you were
now too.
Well, yeah, I would say, but I think you'd agree. Like, I think we've all kind of grown as people. We're not, obviously. I think it's bad if you are still the same person from high school. You know, if you peaked in high school and you haven't made any of those character kind of changes to yourself, if that makes sense. But I was gonna, well, there you go. I mean, and people think that's like it's a weird thing. But that, you know, you gotta take time. You can't master something until you master who you are. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Wow. Well said.
Yeah. Well, have you ever read? I mean, I got that quote. There's a book that I'm reading, and I don't really like these life books. I really don't. But my uncle gave me this book. I think they're all a bunch of bullshit. You know, it's like you gotta live your life and find your life your own way. You know, and then no life book's gonna tell you how to live it. But this book he gave me, it's called Mastery by Robert Greene, and I don't know if you've ever heard of it, or maybe just Robert Greene. Good fucking book, man. It just talks about, it's a lot about, I don't know how to explain it to you. It's just, it's a book about finding who you are and solidifying yourself and then going out. And it's not one of those cheaply written, you know. There was a quote from that book, for example, that I love it. It talks about like Da Vinci, for example, one of the greatest of all time, considered like a genius. And
Mm.
Talks about his life and how early on when he was painting, he wasn't getting any work. He was working at these like with the kings and queens in Italy, and he was doing it their way, like how they wanted the paintings painted, but it wasn't what he wanted to do as an artist, you know. And I think when the capital got moved to Venice or whatever, all those other artesian like painters went with them, but he stayed because he decided, you know, I'm not gonna go and fucking do the same thing. I want to be my own self. And then the quote finishes, you know, like, now to this day you don't remember those painters that went with the kings and queens, but you remember the name Da Vinci. And it's like, that's deep.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
anyway, now I forgot where I was going with the. What was I talking about?
Being weird in high school.
Oh yes, I wanted to ask you. I just, how did you get into film, in general? Like, how did you know it was for you?
That's a good question. I had always. I mean, so I think I was 12 years old. My dad got a flip camera, and I had just like, I think I was just hanging out with friends and bored one day and just decided like we need to make like a little movie. And so like we grabbed Nerf guns and we just made like countless of these little like action Nerf battle.
Those cheesy like kind of YouTube videos. And
Just the classic stuff, man. Classic stuff. And then in my I don't know how old I was, but in my deep embarrassment, I deleted all of them when I was like 14 or something.
Yeah.
And I had never been like drawn to movies, but I always loved action movies. I always loved The Gladiator and The Matrix and Braveheart. And so those were like my step into film. And then for a while throughout high school, I didn't even like movies. I just didn't like movies. I just hadn't seen enough movies, and I was always like, yeah, forget that. I'd rather play League or play Minecraft or some shit like that. It was like my enjoyment of like making movies, making videos was totally reinvigorated by being in class with Mr. Walker and taking his digital storytelling class my junior year. And then towards the end of it, there was the assignment to make like a 5-minute short. And there was a requirement where we had to have an object in the film and then have a line in the film. And so I made this horror short, few of my friends, and then I was like, wow, this is something I haven't done in a long time, but I absolutely love it.
Right.
And so I started watching movies again. And then I watched Reservoir Dogs, and that was, you know, the very cliche moment of, wow, people can make movies like this. And I made like a Reservoir Dogs spoof kind of spin-off with my friends, and then I was like, yeah, I'm probably going to go to college. I guess I'll go to Iowa. Looking at the list of majors and seeing they had cinema, and was like, okay, cool, I'll do that, but I'll just do that as like a minor and study business. Right. And then my first year I was like, I shouldn't bullshit this. Like, I don't want to be a business student. I've never really had like a distinct urge to pursue anything in particular, but I love my film classes, and I know I love telling stories. I've always been obsessed with telling stories and captivated by, you know, interesting and like crazy, wild action and thriller. And so I was like, I think this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to tell stories.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, how do I word? This is, for me, talking to you, because I don't live up in Iowa City. I live down here now in Des Moines, and it just, Iowa in general, people associate, I guess they don't associate it with filmmaking. It's more of like a agriculture, you know, kind of farming.
Oh yeah.
But hearing you talk, man, it's like you're like the most similar person I've spoken to, because I feel like a lot of people, especially those that are not interested in film, when you talk to them about like the craft or, you know, something like that, they think you're a fucking nerd. Like they think, you know, you're like weird about it. And it's hard to explain it to somebody. But sitting down talking to you, it's like it's like a reflection. You know what I mean? It's and I get what you're saying too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's where, yeah. When I was younger and I was making videos, they were just super cheesy and goofy, and it was like, it was weird. But it was like when you go to film school, I mean, that weirdness in a way, right? It's validated. It's like here's like a bunch of people who have your similar interests and find such a deep value in movies, something that everybody knows. It seems very simple. Oh, movies, you're studying movies. Why the hell would you do that? But it's like,
Yeah.
there's so much there. I mean, there's something instinctual for me to like my attraction to movies and attraction to storytelling that I can't fully articulate yet, because I haven't like, I think Off Purpose was my first exercise in storytelling, really. So I have yet to discover exactly what compels me. But for other people, I think life comes across as like, you study some sort of science or you study some sort of practice, and then you get a career in that. And that's sufficient enough because to them, right, they're not so interested in like, well, there's all sorts of things they're not interested in, right? But there's, like, when it comes down to it, I think film is entertainment, and they're not so, right? 'Cause some people do want to like, get involved in entertainment and want to be the storytellers that sort of stand as humanity's generational long, millennia long, withholders of morality. Anyway, I'm kind of like talking in circles, but
no, that's okay. I was gonna say, I mean, going off of that, I think what's unique about film, again, I never went to school for film, and I've been thinking about it more and more, because when I went to college, I went to Iowa State for journalism, and like I'm still doing YouTube now, and I've been doing it for a while, and my film interest was always, I feel like it was always there, but it was kind of more under that blanket. It wasn't until maybe last year when I started finding more and more love for the craft and realizing, that this is something that I really, really want to get good at. And, you start reading books and you start, like you said, watching movies and trying to take notes and improve your own craft. But I think what is so interesting for me, and not just specifically filmmaking, but just kind of the liberal arts in general, I find that it's you're more in tune to who you are when you do work like this, rather than, and this is no disrespect to folks who do, like if you're a doctor or, construction worker, whatever that might be, like a day-to-day 9 to 5, that's, again, money's money. But I just feel like you are able to express your creativity and keep that part of your brain active. While with like other people, if you get a job, it's like if you got into business, for example, I'm sure it would have paid great and consistent money, but you're shutting off that part of yourself, and those are your dreams and your passions and desires. Yeah. It's like inevitably they're gonna come back at some point when you're like 35 or 40. You can be like, man, I wish I did that. And what I find with filmmaking, at least for me, is like it's just this canvas of creativity and expression of who I am and how I see life, how I perceive it, man. And when you make something, when you write something, you double back and start thinking about, how does this now reflect upon me? What have I learned through my life to get to this point, So I guess what I'm trying to say is just, I completely agree with what you're saying, that it's not a niche community per se. It's pretty broad and open, but it's a space where I just think meeting people and talking to people who are interested in film, whatever the process might be, I generally find that these people are so open, they're so unique and they're so individualistic with who they are. And I don't know, it's just a super cool thing to do.
That's what film school at Iowa is all about. You can kind of go the production route, but that essentially means like you take maybe 1 or 2 more production classes, but the vast majority of cinema classes are sitting in a room talking about film. And that's where you just kind of like indulge in these people who have different perspectives and interpret things differently. And that's why everyone is so open, and that's why everyone is like finds value in being different and seeing things different and resonating with different things. And that's one of the reasons, certainly, why I like love film and love talking about film and love the community surrounding arts in general. But it is ultimately about like finding what's sufficient. If it's sufficient enough to, be an accountant or work in marketing or be, whatever, like a biologist, anything, be a doctor. If that's sufficient for you, that's awesome.
Right.
But like we're kind of saying, like for some people that's not sufficient enough, and you have to find that. And if it's film, that means like essentially like storytelling. You want to tell stories, and it's just, I mean, there's a whole conversation to be had about how storytelling has impacted humanity as a species and how it's carried on and told throughout millennia through mythology and Native American stories and folk tale. But storytelling is important, and we need storytellers, and we need writers, and now we have this new medium, film, which is still so young. Is like originally
the 30s? Yeah, something around there. Yeah.
The first Lumiere brothers made the first cinematograph. I think that's how you pronounce it, in 1890.
Yeah.
So it's not an old form. It's still very young, and we're still finding out the capabilities of it. But while I say that, I should say that, there's no shortage of storytellers. There's a lot of people out there who want to study film and be movie makers, be filmmakers, be writers. But we need those people.
Yeah, I mean, two things there. I think everybody essentially is a storyteller. I think what I was trying to say earlier too is the fact that even if you're a doctor, even if you're a businessman, like I could never be a doctor, but a doctor has got their own creative, headspace and their own way of telling. Like everybody is essentially a storyteller. We all tell it differently, of course. But what I was going to go off of with that point too is, when you find a group of people, like in my case, I just found this photographer named Dylan and his girlfriend Yvette, and it's like when you find these people that like legitimately enjoy the same shit that you do. And I'll tell you a story really quickly. You ever been to that coffee shop, Smoky Row, downtown?
I haven't, but I know what you're talking about.
Man, before I even go into this, man, quick question. When you write your script, are you always at home on the computer? Or how do you approach writing? I got to ask you.
So, well, the writing process, I wrote the just like 22-page script. I wrote that, finished it in February of last year.
Uh-huh.
And that was all in Iowa City. That was all on my desk.
Gotcha.
But then I spent the majority of the summer working on it when I was back home in Des Moines working for my dad. And that was all at a desk at home, basically finishing work at like 5 and then like having some dinner and then drinking coffee and then just working on it for the rest of the night.
Do you type it up or do you write? Like, do you handwrite it?
Oh, yeah, I typed it up on Celtex.com.
Yeah.
It's like really awesome website.
Let's say if you got to try. I completely abandoned typing scripts up now. And the reason why I did it, and I would write, but I just feel like you get too much writing done on a computer. When I started writing it, like with a pen, there's a connection to your work. And like you made these words on the page, and you can't write as fast, so it's almost like you're absorbing this information and processing a lot quicker.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But anyway, the Smoky, I go there too many times in the week because the atmosphere there is just something about it. You feed off the energy and then you're writing and blah, blah, blah. But I met up with these guys. I asked them, I said, hey, we should get coffee. I have this idea for this film. And, before I met with these guys, I had never met with somebody who had done any kind of, like, they were pursuing a craft that was similar, like photography or acting, whatever. Before that, it was like I said, it was all my friends. And I had this weird psychological barrier where I felt like my work, my writing, and my directing wasn't warranted. Like, I'm wasting these people's time. You know what I mean? I don't know if you've ever felt that way where it's like
I have, yeah.
Yeah, you feel insecure about, for example, if that older guy in your film, for example, hitting him up and being like, hey, man, I'm an aspiring director, and I know you've got a couple years on me, but, can you be in this short film for me? And, I had this weird thing. I was just like, I don't know if I want to contact people. But I knew eventually you have to get there. So when I met with these guys, man, I was so fucking nervous. I was like sweating. And you know me from high school. Just imagine high school Ben, like coming back out out of my body. And I was stuttering so much because I was so nervous. As I was getting so excited talking to these people. This was like the first time I've spoken to people that understood relatively what the fuck I was talking about. And dude, it was like a kid, like on coke. Like I was just spewing off all this information. But yeah, going back to what you said. Yeah, dude, it's awesome when you meet people and you just kind of, before you know it, you're just talking for 5 minutes straight about what, you know, and you have that gut feeling in your stomach and you're just like, there's something about that kind of vibe, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, totally.
But I don't know. I was going to also ask you, let me get my notebook because I had a good question on here. Oh, well, not a question per se. Have you ever seen the movie? I'm sure you've seen it. You seen a Taxi Driver with De Niro in it? I was going to say, I feel like your movie kind of gives me, at least their cinematography with the lighting, it gives me those kind of vibes. Because it's kind of the night kind of vibes and all that. And when I was watching, I was like, man, this is like some Taxi Driver, you know, aesthetic.
Dude, that's like the best compliment I've gotten.
No.
So
come on.
I'm glad that's, you know, something you can notice. That's how you know you're in tune with film. But Taxi Driver is one of those films that I really picked apart what it meant and watched a lot of interviews and a lot of videos of Paul Schrader, the guy who wrote it, talking about his life and his process of writing it. That was so Taxi Driver and Good Time. Those are the two films that I took and held really close in my hands and was like, I am taking these motifs and these subliminal messages and the emotional expressiveness in these films, and I'm combining it with my story, and I know it'll work.
Right.
And so on both those films, it was just like, I mean, man, I can't overstate the importance of like listening to interviews and reading up on these filmmakers, because they will tell you profoundly life-changing things in like a span of an hour. And it is like, it drastically changed the course of this film for me, because before I even, you know, made these mistakes, I knew not to do it. I knew what to do because of what these guys said.
Right. Well, yeah. And I mean, thinking about that, I mean, it makes sense. You know, if you got, you know, you're listening to guys like the great directors of all time, you know, Tarantino's, your Scorsese's or whatever, they've done so many productions. Why would you not listen to them? You know what I mean? They've done all the trial by fire stuff themselves. Yeah,
exactly. Well, and they're even replicating the classics. They're even, Tarantino is the epitome of pulling and stealing from films that were before his time. I mean, that's what art essentially is about. Filmmaking in particular, it's about stealing. It's about like having one aspect of originality, but then making sure that you're in tune with what's already been told. So, and that's something that I've learned. I learned through the process of making Off Purpose is I'm not telling anything new. This is not like necessarily an entirely new story, because when to it, Off Purpose is about basically hubris. It's about the story of Icarus, the mythology. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No, go ahead and just talk about it, because it makes it a bit more interesting.
Yeah, so Icarus, I don't know. I read it. I took a mythology class my freshman year, so I did read this one in particular, but I'm totally going to butcher the retelling of it. But it's basically about Icarus is this, his father is some great builder. I think he's constructor.
Yeah.
Anyway, he builds these wings, and Icarus is his son, and Icarus begs him to try it out or something like that, and his father warns him not to fly too close to the sun or not to steep too low to the ocean, or he'll fall in and drown. And essentially, Icarus is out there flying on these wings, and there's no better image than picturing, you know, like humans capable of flight and all that entails. Right. And he's soaring and feeling on top of the world, feeling like a bird, like he can traverse and become anything, quite literally. And he flies too close to the sun, as blatant as that message gets, and the wings melt and he falls and drowns. So it's about getting carried away in the act of things while it's inflating your sense of self.
Yeah, all of filmmaking. I mean, if you think about it, nothing really is quite original. And I completely agree. And I think that was really well said when you said it's just one little piece of you that you're leaving as you're trying to retell, you know, a format of a story. I kind of felt like, at least with Off Purpose, I felt like the big themes, the bigger overall, I just felt was morality, you know what I mean? But also like family, you know, money, friends, things like that. And I thought that those were so put together pretty easily, or, you know, at least they're pretty easy to find. And before we even move on, I just also want to say, I know Josh Mullen, and I forgot the other guy's name, but your guys is
Jamie Haggerty.
Yes. Is he Grayson, or is he got a brother? Haggerty?
He's no, he's from Oregon. He's a guy I know through my uncle. So
okay, Haggerty. That name sounds so familiar. Well, that's okay.
I'd be surprised if you know him, but
I probably don't. But I just want to say they did a phenomenal job on the music as well. I was going to say that a lot earlier, but then we ended up becoming kind of off topic here with nerdy stuff. But yeah, the music was so well put together too, and I just want to give them that credit.
I've got to, you know, bounce off that and make that redundant, because they absolutely killed it. I mean, the score in this film is what makes the film. Of course, everyone knows you can't have visual without audio.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you can, but when you're telling a long form story, you need score in a lot of cases, and they absolutely killed it. And the movie would not be near what it is without their score. And both of those guys like did it for free, and we're just interested in helping out. So, I mean, that's the type of thing that just warms my heart.
Yeah, cherry on the top. Well, I know I was gonna say, it's such a weird thing when you want people to help you with your short film, because you have to have that conversation of like, well, do you want to be paid for this, or do you just want to help out? And it's like, I'd love to pay you, I just don't have that much money to pay you. So maybe I could take you for a coffee or something, but that's the best that I could do. But it's like, I guess the hope there is, you know, if you really are passionate about your craft and I'm passionate about mine, let's come together in a creative space and just improve ourselves together without, you know, money.
Right. That's what was so awesome about Jamie Hubbing, is he has professional credits, so he's worked on big time productions, and
I mean, you can tell.
To help me out was,
I was gonna say, I was very surprised. I think at least the three things that I noticed that were most impressive, I think, your some of your cinematography, especially for the action shots itself, you know, with kind of everything, that gimbal mount that you guys had, I thought that looked so smooth. And I think that's one of the hardest things with amateur filmmaking, at least, is sometimes you don't have the equipment to do cool shots. Like, they look really cool in your head, and then you're like, you get on set, you're like, well, fuck, this looks awful. Yeah. And I wrote a specific note now. Yeah. That shot when those guys, the kids, are running away from the cops in that house. It's such a small, it's like a 2-second shot. I love the way that you guys shot it, because it came off so clean, as if you guys had it on a track or something. And I was like, fuck, man. And then through the grass, I think, through like the little backyard.
Yeah, the trucking shot.
Yeah, it was incredible. I was like, because again, what people realize, if you're an outsider looking in, you know, you don't realize how much work that actually takes. Oh, you're right. Fall off your chair.
Yeah, got my phone.
But yeah, I don't think people realize is how difficult that is to do. And, you know, it looks good for the 2 seconds it's on there, but I'm sure that took you a lot longer than 2 seconds to shoot that and set all that up.
Well, I mean, it's great. It's so great, because, you know, you're right. People don't realize that one shot is 3 takes, so that's that amount of time. That shot is like at least 15 minutes on the shot list, 20 minutes on the shot list, discussing what we want, what it's going to look like. And then another 10 minutes discussing light. And then on set, setting those lights up and making sure everything's right. And then when we are about to say action, making sure the boom's in the right spot, and making sure that the lights are in the right spot, and making sure that we don't trip over anything when we're shooting that, and then make sure that they're going in the right direction. And so, it's a 3-second shot, I think, and it's probably like an hour of work.
Yeah, and I think that's you can say the same thing with making a 30-minute production, going back to that for just a second. It's these small bits and pieces that, like, it's like a fucking puzzle, you know, when you have it not put together, you have all these weird things. Once you put it together, it makes this wonderful picture. But yeah, I can't imagine, like, just on day 6 of your shoot, or day, you know, the 4th or 3rd shoot, you know, you guys have a good idea of what's coming next, and you've already got some of your stuff filmed, but you don't have it put together, if that makes any sense. And you don't know how it's going to look until you get to the post-production. You're like, did this look good? Did this look not good?
Yeah, I just couldn't like look at the footage after we shot it, because I did it I didn't for the first couple of shoots, and then the third shoot I like went to the edit booth that night, and this is a little off topic, but I felt like shit. I felt like we had just fucked up and we're gonna have to reshoot everything.
Yep.
And so that was like, I was like, oh my God, if the rest of this footage looks like this, and if the rest of the shoots look like this is gonna be awful. But it was one of those moments where like, you know what, we're making it. Yeah. And I had to maintain that through 11 shoots, and I didn't know. I had speculated when we started shooting that it would take 5 shoots, and so it took over double that.
Right.
And like I said towards the beginning when I was talking about getting Alex on board, he had no idea what he was getting into, but neither did Jake and I. We didn't know ultimately how many more shoots it would be. We were on like shoot 7. I was like, yeah, we probably got like 1 or 2 more. But
yeah, it's always that wishful thinking. Yeah.
A lot of these shoots, it was like, fuck, it's 12 a.m. already.
Yeah.
And we don't even have what we need.
Yeah, and that's such a... Okay, go on. Sorry.
No, yeah, and that's what a lot of the shoots were, except I think maybe there was 3 shoots, the party scene in particular, where we had one night and we had 5 hours, and if we didn't get it all, the scene was going to be incomplete. So it was like one take per shot almost.
Rush hour, yeah. That's such an untouched topic too. Yeah, because that is, and I think I might have texted you this before, but that, in my opinion, being a director, because that's encompassing all of it, that's the hardest part for me. Because when you know, for example, in my case, if I want to shoot something downtown here, okay, at night, for example, everybody's got to come before or after 9 because free parking at that point. And since it's all my friends, you know, we maybe got 3 hours, maybe 3.5, because it's going to be about 12:30. And I do not want to hold these people, you know, longer than I have to, because I know they don't want to fucking be here doing this. Like, we much rather be doing something else. So you have this guilt already, but before the shoots even started. Then on top of that, you know, you've got to multi-manage all of these people. And since it's all my buddies, we're all fucking around. And you're trying to not be an asshole and a stickler about it, but you also know that you have fucking a certain amount of time. And so, you have to maybe do 1-2 shots of everything, because you're not sure if this is going to, you know, you're going to have any time to finish the rest of it. And on top of everything else, you don't want us to go into tomorrow or next week, because... is everybody going to want to be able to come back next week? Probably not.
No. Yeah. They're like, what? We have to do that again? No.
Yeah. That's such a very, very good point. Yeah. It is time management. It is a nightmare. And it has you feeling so insecure on set, even though like even before you've shot your first shot, you're just like, this is going to look like shit. And then you get into the chair and you start editing it. You're like, this looks like shit. And then you finish it and you're like, this is fucking shit.
Yeah, man.
I think that's a good sign, though. I think if you're critical with your work, I think that's better, you know, rather than saying like, this is genius, this is so good, you know.
Totally. It's better to be insecure. I definitely agree, because then your work can only get better.
Right.
I mean, it's not going to get worse when you already have a sense of what's bad.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, like I said, I think going back to, because you said you deleted those videos a long time ago. I don't think I've ever deleted a video of mine, just because whenever I get insecure, I'll go back and watch like one of my early shits, you know, my videos or whatever, and I look back at that and I'm like, damn, dude, it can't be worse than this. And I'm like, we've got a lot of room, and I still end up feeling like, you know, this is going to be poor. But I mean, I think you'd agree. It's not that I necessarily care for people's opinions. That's not why I get insecure. At least it's just more of, as an artist, you want to make sure that this comes out the way you envisioned it. You know what I mean? Do you feel the same way kind of way, or is it different for you?
It's a little bit of that, but when you're saying that, what for me, the motive behind it, what I really wanted to make sure is, I think for me, it's just entertaining people. I want people to be captivated. I want people to be totally intrigued by the story. I want people to be glued in and like not thinking about their day, not thinking about wanting to check their phone, not thinking about what they just ate, whatever the hell people think about, but
Yep.
I want them to be in the story and invested. And that's essentially my motive for storytelling. I think that's what I really enjoy about storytelling is you can really like you can transcend your consciousness. You are like totally, that's what's so crazy about humans for me is because if you go into this theater or you like pull up a video on your laptop or on your TV and your sense of spatial awareness is just shattered.
Yep.
You're basically in this moving image because it has visuals and it has sound, and that's all we need. That's the experiment. That's the procedure, the mix. It's the ingredients,
Yeah.
and the recipe is like getting emotional takeaways from something that you just watched on a two-dimensional screen.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think what I meant more was when I make something, for example, it's not that I fear the criticism of others. I accept the criticism because I agree with you on that aspect. When I make something, when I write something, when I'm trying to create something, I want to touch somebody's heart, and or make them elicit some kind of emotion. I don't really. I mean, whatever the particular film or whatever it is, it doesn't have to be just one singular emotion. But I want them to feel something, to have them think about themselves, because I think you'd agree, all films are a reflection of life, and by
Oh yeah,
extension, they're a reflection of us. So if they can relate
definitely.
to it some way, if they can think about it some way, if they are inspired by some way, and I think, ultimately, at least for me, and maybe this for you as well, it's like I've always wanted to change the world in some sort of positive manner through filmmaking, and I'm talking like big
Yeah.
scale because that's just the power that film has.
Hmm. Yeah, that's awesome.
I was going to say, because I know we're getting out to, I didn't get to give you another good compliment here. You can start a tally sheet here. That car window shot where Alex hands off the drugs
Okay.
to that guy as it's panning back,
Uh,
seamless, looked incredible. And again, one of those things where you didn't have to use that shot if you didn't want to. You could have just done a simple, as you had done with the other ones, just a standard shot of the hands and the cash. But
mhm.
I thought that was so cool. And again, people don't realize how
Yeah.
fucking hard that is to.
Yeah, I think that took us like 5 takes. We handed the gimbal through the window, and even the last take, I had to put a warp stabilizer on to make it not look so choppy. But
Right.
that was one of Jake's shots. That was his idea, that shot, and I would agree it's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just think going back again, and I swear I'll stop sucking you off after this one. But I just, as a general, I remember seeing you put this out, man, and I was just taken aback by it, because I can't express how badly I want to work with you at some point, whether that be
Yeah, we've got to.
tomorrow or months from now. Because when you mentioned you're moving to Chicago, and it's unrelated, but I was because my lease is up in I think August, and I
Oh
want to
yeah.
I want to leave somewhere too, and that was one of the places. If we end up there or wherever, but I just can't begin to tell you how like you know it made me feel good just seeing somebody in Iowa. We're such a small state, and we're not known for those kinds
Hmm.
of things. Just seeing someone go out and put their fullest into something like that, into a project, and again, I don't think people realize, especially those who have never done any kind of film or video or whatever, how much work that takes to not only make the fucking movie, but to, like you said, put the ads out, to have people come
Yeah.
help, to get it, to try to find venues to play the film, and that's what you did, in my opinion, is such a cool thing because I don't know how to, and I'm not saying it was just you, of course, but since you're the figurehead of this whole thing, I just think what you did is such a inspiring filmmaker.
Oh shoot, you cut out.
Can you hear me now? There we go. I fixed it.
You there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Oh no, you can't hear me. Hold on. Shit. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you.
God damn
Okay.
it. Fucking computer. Anyway, I was just gonna say, I'm not sure what part I cut out. I was just gonna say, I don't know if you've realized this maybe, but there's kids that are younger than us, for example, that are interested in film, that might see it, that live here, and
Yeah.
be inspired by that. Because what you did, and we're talking like this is some fucking feature-length, hour-long Warner Brothers film, but
Right.
seriously, what you did was something that isn't seen in the in Iowa at least that much. So I just want to give my hats off to you, man. I mean,
Thank
seriously.
you, man. I appreciate it. That's what I like hearing. What every other like filmmaker or people that know about video production that I've talked to or shown a cut of, or have now seen the film, tell me, among other things, like this must have taken a shitload of time, and it did, but it's all worth it because
Right.
first of all, I knew it was going to take a lot of time, and it took, probably triple as much time as I thought it would, but it's worth it. I mean, it's what it took too. I mean, I could have spent way less time, and the film wouldn't have been as good.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just think, how do I word it? I just think what happened when I watched it, for example, and I came in there with I tried to come in there with as neutral of expectations as possible. But, as I was watching the film, noting these things that were going on, I was just thinking to myself, man, some of this shit, I cannot fucking imagine, how long this particular shot took, or how long even like the blood, for example, how long that might have taken on. It's the simple things. And I think that's what's so admirable about it, is because it's filmmaking is just stacking things on top of things to form this massive fucking building, if you will. But it's not easy. It's not as simple as that. And I just think it's, I don't know. I have to commend the process, man, seriously. And I guess what I'm trying to say is someone who, and in my opinion, I peg myself far lower than you, because you've got that formal education, and it's obvious because you have that. Well, not just the education. I mean, the experience as well. But it's obvious that like that film process that you understand. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense, like that's what I
see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's an inspiration, like to me and to other people, because it's like your craft isn't like fine-tuned. You're not perfect, of course, but it's so unique. It's so you, and it's so obvious. If that makes any sense.
Thank you, dude.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, I'm done. No more.
I came on here for ego inflation.
Come by anytime. No, I think I got all my compliments that I wanted to get off. I wanted to make sure.
Good. Now let's talk shit about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. We can. Yeah. I did have some criticisms for it. Not anything bad per se. Yeah. The sound in the car was the only time, and I know you were on the sound a lot. I felt like that was the only time. Did you guys use lavalier mics, or was it all straight up boom mics?
That was a rough one. We used lavs for that shoot.
Yep.
But I also put a boom in the car. But the problem with the boom is I had to put it at their feet, and that's my car in that scene. And there's like anytime you shift in the seat a little bit or they move, like the chairs squeak, and so that was just not gonna work. And so we used the lavs, and the lavs. It was Jake's lavs, and it was plugged. They had the transmitter in like straight into his camera, so it just recorded it like it was on board. And so I can't remember or not if he had headphones and was listening, but I think we just figured it would be fine. And they something about those lives. I just think it was because they had him under like 3 layers of shirts, because that was a super cold shoot. And they just aren't. I just think they weren't like super high quality lavs.
Right.
They did, and they recorded like Ted's lav recorded on the right track, and then so they recorded both to the same recording at the same time, but like one lav would record to the left, and then one would record to the right, and so like that scene, the sound wasn't good. I had Jake edit that because I got that into post, and I just couldn't. That was the scene I had Jake edit because I was texting him. I was like, dude, I just can't. Like,
yeah,
that was the only scene I was just not able to edit because I was like, I'm gonna have a brain aneurysm trying to get this together, and
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I thought that was the only really, like, patchy sound, and it wasn't anything that you couldn't hear, like, that level of, like, I can't even hear what they're saying. Just rather didn't match the rest of the sound. And I think I also said and this isn't even really a criticism. In my opinion, I wouldn't have gone when Alex is walking near the end. There was like these Minecraft foot noises, like when he's stepping. That's what I wrote down there.
Yeah.
I just personally, I would have put him in there. Was the only thing, but that's not a criticism. That's just a design choice, I would say.
Yeah, that was part of the sequence, because Jake edited from when the end, right when the montage ends, and there's a shot of Alex walking up to his dresser and grabbing some of the Molly. Mm-hmm. That's when Jake's edit starts, and so Jake put that Foley in. I thought it was fine. The thing about audio too is it plays differently on headphones than it does to like a phone or to a laptop, so it's always kind of hard to gauge
how it's going to sound.
And to not diverge too much, there's that bit of the edit where I was like, there's so many things that I like missed, but that's to still acknowledge that there's so many things that I didn't miss, and the amount of time that I could have just spent another year editing this thing. So I was like, I was ready to be done with it. And as far as like when I am now submitting it to film festivals, those are things that I can now fix.
Yeah, on the downtime
when I submit.
Yeah, you never want to get I think once you get when you're not toxic per se, but when your project starts turning into more than a project, where it's like now it's becoming repetitive and boring. I think that's that's when I think it's not time to give up on it, but either time to take a break from it or just like you said, release it out. I think the biggest criticism that I would have was just the writing in general, and I don't think it's your fault, because we spoke about that earlier. It's a half an hour film. You don't really have the time to establish the writing, the dialogue. I felt like some of it was just a little bit clunky. There were words that I don't think I would use per se, and again, I don't want you to take this personally, because
these are all things that are just really good to hear. I mean, I know to hear these,
but take my opinion with a grain of salt. I'm not like some fucking, but this is just as a viewer standpoint. I just felt like the dialogue itself was written kind of clunkily in parts, and I'm not sure how much room was left for like improv per se, but I almost would have, I would have just almost let the people kind of go with it. Like in the car scene, for example, between Alex and Ted, with that scene, what's going on? They're best friends, and Alex is revealing the secret to Ted. I would have almost let that go on longer, because that's like one of the big plot points is he used his dad's money to, he used that donation to pay those medical bills, right? And I would have let that go longer, because that's a huge plot point. And going off of that at the end, for example, and I don't know if this was like the last shoot or if this was post-COVID or what it might have been, I felt like the ending was a bit rushed, a lot of that happens so fast, like you don't really have time to soak up anything. I know there's that cliffhanger, of course, too, but I just felt like the last 2 minutes, because when I looked when they're going up to up the stairs to Alex's apartment, I was like, okay, we must be getting towards the end. I click, and there was like a minute left. I'm like, holy shit, or not a minute left, but there's about 2-3 minutes left. I'm like, holy fuck, like what, how's the movie going to end from here? And I just felt like that was rushed at the end, and so, but I think that was my only, not gripe, just criticism of the film in general. I just think was the writing itself, and there were certain decisions I think that were made too, like Alex, for example, with the money. He's this kid, the guy's got a gun pointed at Alex, man, and I just felt like it was odd. He's like, you're not gonna fucking shoot me. It's like, how do you know that? He comes off like this. He comes off like this badass, and he is a badass in the film. But I felt like what was missing was like just that kind of grounded reality. It's like, well, is that really how you'd act if a guy's got a gun to your face? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I know it's your mom's medical bills, but you got a gun pointed to your face. So I think those are the only really big things that I put down.
Those are the kind of things that the runtime, as far as the length, how short it is, in relation to how much time it could encompass,
right?
I think sort of hinders, because, the ending scene, my struggle with that is I wanted Thomas to be dead, and I wanted Eric to kill him, and I wanted Alex to use the knife that he got stuck up with. He almost got robbed with.
Yeah, that
And so
comes
those
all
are what
full
I
circle.
needed.
Yeah.
And I was like, just kind of like mushed it together and was like, it's going to happen like this. And if I had spent more time on it, I certainly could have smoothed that out. And it became apparent on set too. I was like, yeah, well, fuck it,
Yeah.
we're doing it.
Yep.
And no, but I would agree. I mean, writing for me, I have no problem writing action and directing action because that's easy. But
Right.
I really struggle writing dialogue, and I do think I got better at it as the course of the film went on because I was rewriting before every shoot. I mean, I'd written the entire script 4 times over, so I was on version 4 before we started shooting, and then before each shoot, I would basically rewrite it again. And that's to say that if we had ended up shooting like the second or third draft, it would have been god awful. It would have been a god awful film.
Right.
But so it's better than what it could have been. But I do like the beginning, those early scenes at the party art, and then him with Thomas. Like my whole angle is off there, and that's why I look at Off Purpose ultimately as an exercise in writing, an exercise in directing, an exercise in organizing and producing an independent film, because I learned a lot, and those are my takeaways. Of course, I mean, a lot of times I think when people go in to make a film, it's like their takeaways ultimately can be I guess I shouldn't even really say definitively what people's takeaways are when they're films that they make. But for me, it hadn't really been like, oh, I'm making this film to be a better writer or to be a better director. Before, for me, it was like just getting my friends together, shooting this, doing whatever the hell, because I want to just make something cool.
Right.
And there was certainly that aspect in Off Purpose, but as I got towards the end of it, I was like, okay, I can really leverage this to make myself a better filmmaker. And so that's how I started looking at things. And that's what allowed me to be a little bit more susceptible to reaching out and getting input from the people who are the cast, like the people who are there to like take direction from me. I'm like, hold on, now I want to angle this towards what do you like, telling them the context, reminding them of the previous scenes and the character development so far, and then asking them like, okay, so this is the line, here's what I think, but if you think that it's more natural to say this or that, and more so like, learning how to be a director and telling them, making it part of a conversation rather than this is the line and say it like this.
Yeah, and I agree. I think there's a certain dynamic between cast, director, actor. Yeah, and I mean I completely agree with that. I have to also say, I mean, you can't really there's certain things I don't think you can learn about filmmaking. You can read all the books you'd like, you can take all the notes you want, but you have to actually go out and make those, because there's just certain things that you'll never know until you get on a set for the first time, and you know how to work a camera, great. Oh, you got a great storyboard, but now set the camera up, direct the, you know what I mean? It's you have to get that trial by fire, like we talked about. And
oh, totally.
Like I said, I think, and like I said, that being the biggest problem with the film, and the fact that it's just half an hour, like you can't. Those are things that you can't really fucking fix that, because it's half an hour. You give it an hour and a half, and I'm sure that problem is subsided a lot. You know what I mean? I think that's really good. And it's like, what was I going to say? Yeah, I think, like you said, you don't come into anything like especially this and say, yeah, you know what, this is strictly for this. I'm going to become a better writer and director. But through a year-long process, I guarantee you now, if you go back and write this and try this again with what you learned previously, like a new film, your next one, goes a whole lot better, because you gain so much information through the whole process.
Yeah, definitely. That's right. A couple things I want to know. First of all, I mean, definitely it was time for me to make another film, just because it had been 2 years since I had, but also like I had seen a lot more films since the last time I made a film. I had read a lot more things about film, and I had experienced more things at 2 years older. And so,
Right.
and I had started seeing my film too much as just like not good. And I just, all the things, all the flaws that I kind of looked past and being like, it was just like a production. I was like, okay, well, these are like discernibly what I can improve upon. So I looked at that film and I was like, okay, I'm ready. Like, I have all these things now that I can utilize to make a better film. Like, I know I can make a better film. And what I wanted to know too is it's important to learn by fire, like you say. There's a certain, I was talking to my girlfriend about this. There's like, I went through periods of time with this film that was like, I had an idea in October of 2019. And so I was like, okay, I have this idea. I'm just like going to be like pretty much bouncing this around, like thinking about it, applying it to certain films I see, applying it to things that I hear, and just like really working with it and try to see if it'll take shape. And then once it started taking shape and I had like these plot points, I started like, gathering my resources, and that was like took shape in Good Time, the film Good Time, and Taxi Driver. A couple other films too, but those are like the two
main ones. Yeah.
Those two ones. And I could have spent a whole year gathering more films and seeing several other films and reading several other articles and watching these interviews and listening and like experiencing and viewing the world essentially through the perspective of how I could shoot this film. But after a certain point of time, it was like, okay, I'm moving on to writing. And then I'm writing, I was like, I could spend a whole year on this, and then we could have to spend a whole year on shot list, and then we could spend a whole year on production. But it was like, it worked out in the way of like, once I completed something, I had gathered enough and had spent enough time working on it, as well as also visiting different films and listening to different filmmakers. So basically it was just about like kind of gauging how much time I spent so far on this like one aspect of like idea brainstorming, and then like moving on to writing, and then moving on to pre-production. It was like somehow it worked out where I spent ample time on each, and of course I could have spent more.
Yep.
But I think somehow it worked out where I just spent, sufficient amount of time on each one of those to make a 30-minute film and then have it not be god awful.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing too is like, if that's the only thing you're working on for 2 years, I mean, I'm sure there's other ideas, but it's your main focus. Yeah. I mean, after a while, because like you said, you're applying a lot of what you're studying back to this idea. You don't want it to ever become like, if that's all you're thinking about, you really don't want that to become something where it's like, yeah, like you said, a pain in the ass. Because as soon as it turns into not fun,
right,
everything else just turns to shit. It's like, you don't, when you're writing it and you already hate the idea, it's like,
yeah,
just fucking give up on it. Because
totally. That's what, like, being halted in March by COVID, not being able to like move production, the silver lining was the opportunity to have more time. Like, I had more time to rework the script and see more films and gather all these resources, like I've been saying. And so I was just sort of allotted more time to sit with it and be able to like come back, like not work on it for several days and then read it again and with like a new fresh perspective and be able to be like, okay, well, this is blatantly wrong. I don't know how I can see this before. And the same goes with editing. One of the best things with editing, one of the best ways that made my edit better is taking time off of it and like watching it again a few days later. And so when I had originally started editing in November or October, I'd started editing in October, and we were on, I think we had like 2 shoots left. And then I just went crazy on the edit. I was like in the edit booth like 5 p.m. to like 5 a.m. for a couple weeks straight. And so I like kind of assembled the entire film, except what we hadn't shot yet. And then I was like, I wasn't quite burnt out, but I was like, I'm just not seeing this from the view I need to be seeing this from. And so I did the last 2 shoots And actually, after the last two shoots, I was back in the edit booth again for a little while. But then what really gave me a big amount of time was around Thanksgiving break, when I took like 10 or 11 days off editing, and then I went back in there and I was like, oh snap, like this can be changed. This will look better this way. I need to change the scale on this. I need to adjust the audio here and everything like that.
Yeah, I think there's. He sounds like a mad scientist or something. 5 p.m. But I think there's a joy in doing that. Like, there's surely a moment when you're sitting there in the booth. It's like 1 a.m. and you're alone.
Oh, dude, I was clocked in, and in time.
Oh my god, I know.
Not be a time was a construct.
There's a quick one, and this makes me think of this now, and I kind of hold this. I don't know why, but when I was walking over by East Village, there's this architecture building, and it was like 7 p.m. on a Thursday, and this Albert Einstein looking guy was sitting there in this dark room. It's like a huge window. You can see into it's this first floor room. It's a huge window room. He's got his blueprints out and he's writing, man. And he's got this one little lamp on, and there's a whole city and, a whole populace, but this one guy is going crazy in here with his ideas, man. And it's like, you got to strive to be the architect in the window. And that sounds like, I mean, you know what I mean? It's
nice.
You, I don't know. There's a pride when you're like putting 12 hours in straight and you're just thinking to yourself like, man, fuck.
That's the flow, dude. That's what you got to strive to get to. Once you get to the flow.
Oh yes, that little workflow thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
That's true about filmmaking, though, is because filmmaking inherently calls for the disruption of flow, because there's different subsets of filmmaking, right? Like you're either watching a film with the perspective of, okay, what can I glean from this and use to my advantage, and then you have to move to writing, and it's like, in each of those, you can enter a flow in writing. You can enter a flow in pre-production. I don't think you can enter a flow in production, but you could definitely enter a flow in post. But throughout all those, it calls for the disruption of flow, in the sense that, like, you're writing, but you also have to consider the practicality of things. You have to consider, like, okay, now I gotta like figure out how to make this fucking prop because I just wrote it in and it just has to work. And and in relation to Off Purpose, that was the drugs that making those little pieces of Molly was not hell, but something close to it, because I had to figure out how to make them look realistic, and then I had to like mass produce them.
Right, as if you were like Walter fucking White. I was gonna say I got some Breaking.
I was actually.
Yeah. I got some Breaking Bad vibes. I forgot to mention that from this film. Nothing too crazy, but yeah.
Oh no, that was, see, I totally forgot. I rewatched Breaking Bad when I was first like conceiving Off Purpose. I just rewatched the entire series, and that was, I mean, right? Like, it's a sort of normal guy that gets into drugs, like selling drugs. Like, you have to reference Breaking Bad because they've done it perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, it was really similar in terms of, it's morally it's wrong what he's doing, but he's doing it for, his family, you know what I mean? Right. So yeah, I was like, oh, this is a little bit like, especially the opening scene when he's actually making the drugs. I'm like, oh, maybe we've got a bit of a, Breaking Bad inspired film.
That was the other text that I forgot to mention that I definitely was pulling from.
What I gotta say also, going back to what you said, I think it's crazy how when you come back to things a few days later, and sometimes you don't even think about it. It's like subconsciously, somehow your mind sorted it out for you, and you come back and now it's like clearer to you, and you're like, yeah, how did I see that? I don't understand how that works. I don't think maybe there's some psychological term for it or explanation, but I find that baffling to me, which is just ridiculous, mate. But
it's the same way you can watch a film again. You can rewatch a film and discover something new about it, and see something different, or have a different interpretation or emotional takeaway.
I was going to ask you, Josiah, what is your favorite film, if you have one?
It's Good Time for sure, Safdie Brothers.
Yeah.
But as I transition from finishing Off Purpose and onto my next projects, it's due time for me to find a new favorite film, and just kind of like withhold as my latest favorite film. So I'm in the period of filmmaking where it's like time to hit the books again,
right?
so to speak.
What about? I mean, what's next on the agenda? Do you have any kind of little
Yeah,
ideas?
I have a long form screenplay that I've written out in prosaic form, not completely, but idea generating a screenplay, body horror thriller about cannibals in Greece.
Oh, a bit of like a kind of a cult kind of
Along,
thing.
sort of
Yeah.
more so about like kidnapping and trafficking, but then like of course with cannibals written in there. Um, that's a super long project that I'll be working on for a long time. But as far as something that I actually am going to be producing soon, well, not super soon, but like working on pre-production now and writing. Um, okay, I shouldn't say even pre-production. I'm just working on writing. Is that narrowed it down? Um, is like a short little surrealist horror um, film about. Um, it's like a pseudo camping guide. It's like a my idea essentially is to like make something unsettling that at first poses itself as innocent and unthreatening.
Yeah.
So
Kind of like Get Out, kind of creepy white people kind of vibes.
sort of, yeah. It's gonna be like starts off the film, short film, very short thing. Is gonna be like camp in Iowa. This is what Iowa's great, and then as the seconds go by, this guy who's kind of like promoting Iowa starts saying creepy stuff, and then things kind of get a little unsettling, and
Mm.
then it ends with a big twist. So
Sounds similar. I have this idea that I'm writing also. It's about this young filmmaker guy who's sick of taking these like shitty. You ever seen Better Call Saul?
hmm
You know, when he's doing all those lawyering for those old people, it's kind of the same thing. He's doing all these shitty jobs for
yeah,
these, he wants something bigger, and he gets this huge, quote unquote, big film director who's got to keep it really secret. And he's want to pay this guy $5,000 to meet him in these woods. And, the kid,
oh,
it's got this theme of like, all that glitters isn't gold. This kid's got a good thing going, but he takes this big job, goes out to the forest, meets this guy. It's kind of the same thing. This dude is clearly not a film director. He's really kind of weird. You see in Blair Witch Project how they shot that film where it's all through the camera. That's how it's going to be shot. And they're walking through the forest, and the guy starts kind of saying these not weird things per se, but he's acting kind of erratic. They're going deeper and deeper. There's like a specific scene I see where they meet these hikers. Those guys are kind of weird white people. They have that weird Get Out kind of vibe. And eventually he loses the tour guide. It's like nighttime. He's going crazy trying to find, what the fuck's going on. He sees this fire in the distance. He goes over there, and then like nothing. It's silence. There's nobody there. And then out from these trees, like on all sides, are these like cult members that come out. And it turns out, similar. That's odd how we're thinking of.
blurred in.
I think everybody likes those weird. I was gonna say Get Out's probably like one of my
Oh,
favorite films, and
yeah.
for one of those reasons that the way that the horror is constructed, it's not like jump scares. It's this vibe
Right.
that gives you. It's just.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're about at the hour and a half mark. So it's usually when I end these, but and I don't want to hold you for. I know you're a busy man. You got.
Oh no, I'm not busy today. I'd love to talk for.
Dude, we can
Good.
we can go for another half an hour. Yeah, that's completely fine. I
Let's
mean,
do it.
I don't.
Put another 30 on there.
Well, we can go another 4 hours. That's fine. I was just kidding. I gotta text.
Yeah, no, I would be content with another 30. Let's do it. I wanted to say, yeah, a filmmaker going out to the woods to meet somebody reminds me of, I don't know if you've seen Mulholland Drive, David Lynch film.
Don't think I have, no.
There's a sequence where this filmmaker goes out to meet this strange figure on a ranch, like a cowboy ranch. And this guy basically tells him that he has to hire this actress, and he sort of alludes to what will happen if he doesn't.
Right.
But he also doesn't give him concretely why he needs to. And the film, I mean, I don't know if you know David Lynch,
Yep. Just haven't seen that particular film was the only problem.
but yeah, it's
Got
it's
those
a
kind of.
wild film.
Yeah, I was gonna say I like those POV, like paranormal activity kind of shot through the camera, Blair Witch Project kind of
Oh
style,
yeah,
because it's so easy to like, not easy, but it's a lot easier than just creating a whole, especially
oh, it
low
definitely
budget.
is. Found footage is I mean, I think it's a form that was obviously done first by done first and correct by Blair Witch Project, and then it was sort of a format that was like kind of appropriated, to so to speak, by big production companies, and they sort of like ruined it. But I think it's one of those things that is on the way back, where in the world of everyone having a camera in their pocket and everyone having in home cameras, surveillance systems on themselves, it's one of those things that are coming back, I think.
Yeah, I think with like this particular idea, I was thinking like, well, if I shoot it through the camera, I think that makes a lot of sense, because the camera to this kid's pretty important. You know, he's a fucking filmmaker. Like his whole story, his whole life is revolved around this camera. So why not tell the story through that? But on a practical side, I mean, makes filming so much fucking easier, man. Because all you have to do is hold that camera. And in my case, for example, I've got maybe 1-2 assistants, Big Kareem and Edis, they'll come out. But like I said, when you don't have folks that are really, really passionate about it and you've got a limited time frame, because that's the thing that I hate most. I wish, these big studios, and I was actually going to ask you about this earlier. I love watching like bad horror films specifically because there's so many of them. But I don't know if you ever just watch bad movies and you think to yourself like, man, if this is the kind of shit that's getting picked up and put out, I'm going to be fine.
Yeah, there's a certain level of comfort in watching a horribly written, horribly directed and shot film. There's, you got to enjoy that comfort, and as long as I guess for me, this is diverging a little bit, but I think as long as for me have some sort of like creative input on a story, whatever format that is,
right,
I'm content.
Yeah, that's always the biggest thing too, is how much of it do you want to, like, if you get a studio that picks up a script but they say, oh, we're going to give you a flat, let's say $50,000, that's a lot of fucking money. It's a great script, but it's ours afterwards. It's always one of those questions. It's like, well, would you take it?
Yeah,
that's your work. Yeah.
That's the thing about Hollywood is there's writers who write to get their script sold.
Yeah.
And then there's filmmakers, there's artists who write to tell their story, and they're not going to compromise their vision. And again, David Lynch is one of those guys.
Yeah, I think that's a big question too, because I think it's you can be more of the artist when you've got, because you need money to live regardless, which we can't ever go around that. But it's that question of you need to be an artist, but you have to also be practical too. So
right.
I don't know what I would do if that would ever happen. Maybe I'd take the first one and then take that $50,000 and go out to, I don't know, Cuba or something.
I guess. Yeah.
I don't know, Cuba. Probably not Cuba. I don't know why I said Cuba.
Just disappear.
That's not a lot of money, to be fair. Well, it is. But...
$50,000 set for life.
Yeah.
Well, in Cuba, maybe.
Well, yeah, those countries that $1 worth more than $1, maybe. Yeah.
Right.
And then come back one day, but probably not.
Back for $50,000 more.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's a book that I've read. It's called the Screenwriter's Bible. I think that was in Mr. Walker's class, or at least one of his classes. And I remember I stole that from his class on accident. I'm too afraid to give it back. But if you haven't read that book, it's a really, really, really good book. I'm pretty sure Reading the Screen kids had it. If you took that class. I didn't take that class though.
Dude, I fucked up and wasn't able to take that class because I was taking some internship thing through Waukee my senior year. I was so pumped to take that class, and then the only time they had it was like right when I had to go to Waukee for the day.
Yeah. Well, I just remember.
And I love Walker, man. He's like
I've heard good things.
Actually.
Yeah. A lot of people didn't like him that I heard. Like Kieran and Edis, I think they took that class and I don't know if they always talk smack. But it's an acquired taste, I think, that guy. I
definitely would agree. I didn't like him, but then I realized I started learning about what art is. In my senior year, I had him for AP Lit, and I started realizing what art means and how you interpret things and symbolically how things stand. And I was like, okay, this guy is really smart.
Right. He's like a mentor kind of. We're really sucking him off now, Mr. Walker. If you're out there listening,
I'm going to send him. I'm going to get his send him because part of the reason why I was reinvigorated by making my short film alone is because when I showed it, because you show your film like after you show everyone shows their short film. He was like going off about how he enjoyed it. So I was like, okay, if I can make something that this guy enjoys, then I can probably make it.
Then you can, then you're probably way above the screenwriters that are selling the horror, the shitty horror.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, Mr. Rock, if you're listening, mate, I still have the book. I'll get back to you eventually. But what I was gonna say, really quick before we do, because I can't forget to mention this. If you ever seen the movie Truth or Dare 2018 on Netflix?
I haven't, but I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about? Oh man, that is. I asked you your favorite film earlier. That's probably my favorite, like bad film, because it's like it's like they try to cliche all this stuff in there. Like every character's got some flaw and every character's got a theme, and they try to play. It's just. I love picking apart shitty work, but it's also like, I think, in my case, for example, not that I think my work is poor. Well, some of it, the early stuff for sure. But I think if you're able to criticize your own work, it makes making art a lot easier. You know what I mean? If you're a prick about it and you're like, you got your fucking thumb so far up your ass that you're like, oh, this right here, this is the Magna Carta of my work. And you said that for your last 7 things. It's like, number one, I don't think anybody ever wants to work with you. And number two, it's like, you're never going to improve. Just...
Yeah.
If you think everything's golden.
That's what, of course, we always have more to learn, but I always wonder what like Stanley Kubrick or Alfred Hitchcock thought of their film, or maybe their early films in general, because of course it's impossible. Like even when you're the filmmaker, let's say you are Kubrick and you made 2001: A Space Odyssey or you made Clockwork Orange, like there's no way you look at that and think like, oh damn, it sucks, like keep finding these things I don't like about it. But they had such uncompromising visions that I think they're an instance of like, okay, this is actually really good, and like they don't really have much to critique. But I wonder if they really did hate their work or not.
I mean, I would say they probably did. I mean, I think it just as an artist in general, no matter what kind of art you're making, you inherently don't you inherently kind of hate your work because it never turns out what you like exactly how you wanted it to, and that's what that pursuit is. You're trying to you have like you said with Off Purpose, it starts as like a little spark or like a little flame, and then you don't really think about it that much, but you're like, oh, that's kind of cool, and then you put a bit of gasoline on it, it gets bigger. So, I mean, if you want my 2 cents, I'm sure that maybe they didn't hate it, but I'm sure that they were fucking nitpicking the shit out of it. And then when it came out, everybody's like, holy fuck, what is this?
Right. I think you're probably right. Maybe that's just like my trying to feel better. Like, oh, there's got to be some point where you can feel good about your work. But I mean, I shouldn't say I don't feel good about Off Purpose. Off Purpose is something that like got better the longer I kind of was in the conceiving the idea stage. It got better and better because it originally started out, I just had this idea of this guy who sold drugs like a DoorDash employee. Like he biked around and sold drugs. And I was like, okay, well, what's an interesting way for him to get the drugs? Okay, he makes a bait bag out of like cornstarch and baking soda and some sort of moldy material, and so he steals it. And it's like, okay, what's more interesting? Okay, he almost gets robbed, and so I find out, right, that's just the course of how it goes.
Yeah, kind of like that evolution. And I think maybe something for you to consider, Josiah. I think it'd be cool if you filmed your process for your next big one. You know what I mean? Like a behind the scenes for the whole beginning to end kind of.
Yeah, I'm considering putting together like a long YouTube video, just like how to make a short film and just like in depth describe the process, because I think that's something that a lot of people, when you really go after it and like you go through the process of making an independent film like I did, you learn a lot, and there's of course more there's so much to share, and I really do wish I like had found somebody that would be interested, that would have been interested in like shooting a behind the scenes on Off Purpose, because I would love to watch that back, but I just couldn't find anybody, and there was also constraints on like the amount of crew people that we could have around.
Yeah, with COVID and all that after.
But yeah, that is a good idea. I'll definitely have to do that.
I was gonna say, if I lived in Iowa City, I would immediately opt in. But unfortunately,
Well, we
distance
got.
is a problem.
I mean, my next project is that Camp Iowa thing is going to be in the summer. So
oh, if you're back
I don't
in
know
town,
location wise. I don't know location wise where it's going to be, but it's going to be around probably. I mean, it's going to be in Iowa, but I'll definitely reach out to you when that time comes and on script.
I don't really care
Get
where
some
it's at.
feedback.
I'll fucking go wherever, man. I mean, like I
All
said,
right, dude.
I just think the process itself. I don't know. We talked about this way before, but when you are in a space with people that are in the same creative mindset as you, it's like you feel like fucking unstoppable, you know, because you're
Yeah.
bouncing like a million things off each other, and it's just like I cannot describe it like to you. I'm sure you've had this feeling where life is so good in that moment that like you cannot help but smile. It's like uncontrollable. That's what that feeling is like, man. And like it's like
Yeah.
when you're so passionate about something and you have other people who are also passionate about it, and then you like get this conglomerate together. It's just like holy shit. Like that's the power of life. And it's I don't know, this is some hippie, you know, real weed shit, right? But it's true. I mean, it's incredibly true.
Oh, it's very true. I mean, I had those concretely, unfortunately, but I had several of those moments with by myself writing, and then also like in pre-production working with Jake. Like, holy shit, we're both just this is going to be such a good shot. It's going to show this. It's going to exhibit that. And it's going to be like subliminally expressive of this.
Yeah, then
It's
you
gonna
start
be
nerding
cool.
out and talking really
Oh, yeah.
quickly. Yeah. I was gonna say, do you ever just kind of? Well, yeah, you just said you did. Yeah, when you're just sitting there, you know, writing or whatever, you stop what you're doing and you just kind of fucking look at the ceiling. You're thinking like, fuck, man, like here I am, you know. And I don't know. I'm sure people that
Yep.
like are into being doctors or whatever. I don't know why the fuck we're picking on the medical field here, but it's an
They're easy targets.
easy targets. But I'm sure people that are in the medical field have those same moments as well. I'm not saying that if you're in a different profession, you're not. But I think going back to what we were talking about way at the beginning, everybody has got the creativity in them. You know, everybody is a storyteller. So it's like that is, in my opinion, that's your truest. Like that's as close as you can get to your heart and to your soul is like through some sort of expression of yourself. So it's like
Yeah.
you get I don't know, you get those I call them like fireworks in your heart, in your chest, and it's like it's fucking I don't know. And then just the process
That's what it's about.
yeah, exactly. So and I don't know. I think do you ever get like this kind of inkling to just kind of go out on this? Like you ever wanted to go to like Alaska or something, Montana, just for like a week?
Oh yeah, there was a period of time like my sophomore year, I really just wanted to like quit what I was doing and just like go live in Alaska or go live in somewhere
Right.
and just like live out there.
Was that kind of like a low point for you, or was it just kind of a weird
Well,
time
sort
in
of, but
life?
it was also like, man, what is this gonna like amount to? I mean, you know, it was just like I don't know how to describe it. It was like it seemed very enticing compared to like the everyday going through the motions of going to class, like doing homework, kind of doing work, and just getting out there seemed a lot more fun.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think when I was in school, like I said, I went to school for fucking journalism, and like there was a passion there. I wanted to, you know, like I said, change the world, but I think that it was misdirected because I ended up dropping out. I think my third, fourth semester, and same kind of similar thing to you. I just hated the daily routine. Like I wasn't really living. I was just kind of going through those motions, man.
Yeah,
And I find it so odd that life works itself out. Oh, you have to work your own life out. I'm not saying it like it happens naturally. You have to be aware of where and who you are and what's happening. But I just find it so
Right.
weird that, you know, everyone's life is so different. Every single person's got their own unique path and how they ended up where they are, you know. So
Yeah. That's what's really tough about college is obviously very blatantly it's not for everyone, but it's also I don't think it's for a lot of like I don't think it's for a lot of people who are in college. I don't really think it's for me, but that's just still acknowledge that I've learned so much
right.
and I've gotten amazing sort of experiences and insight, but it's oh geez, what was I going to say here?
Getting old, dementia.
The dementia kicking.
The odds. Something about college and how it wasn't for everybody.
Shit,
that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think of, I was just gonna add on to it. I agree with what you're saying. It wasn't for me, at least in that manner. I was never a fan of kids paying for classes and taking these like biology or these other like classes just to get, you know what I mean? Like if I'm taking journalism as my major and I got to take biology for these like extracurriculars, or whatever the fuck, I don't like that, you know.
That's okay. I didn't find exactly what I wanted to say, but I kind of did. So
Okay,
that was when you're in those like first years of college and you have to take those gen eds and you're taking fucking biology.
Yeah.
And for me, and I was a film major and I was like, why the fuck am I taking biology? Like,
yeah,
I do not want to read this bio book. And what the hell am I going to learn from it? I learned, I can learn some interesting things, but that's what's so hard when you're entering college, because you have to do this other shit. You have to study these classes that you don't actually are interested in because the university requires it, but you're simultaneously like not getting what you really want out of your major. And yeah, for me, thinking back on college, I'm surprised I didn't like just drop out too, because I was not feeling it my second semester of my freshman year, because I was taking my first production class and the professor for the class, like, I guess technically she was the TA, but she was the one actually like teaching us.
right.
She was just not a good filmmaker. I don't think she had like a keen sense for film or like production.
Right.
And it was a production class, and then so we would like have an assignment and like shoot something, and then she would like give critiques, and I was like immediately, and I was self-aware of this. I was like, nothing you say to me has value because I know what your films look like and they're garbage.
Right.
And then so I was like simultaneously self-aware of that, being like, well, why the fuck am I in school then?
Yeah, that's such a fucking good point, actually. Yeah, I hate. There were certain professors that I hated the way that they taught, and I couldn't for the life of me understand. Like I took one film production class. That was the one class that I really fucking liked, man, because it was an extracurricular, and that was the one fucking class that I loved, man, because the guy, again, he was himself. He wasn't a teacher. He was his teaching way, his teaching style. He was a fucking person, not like just this teacher. And it's like, I was so engaged in that class, but everybody else that I was learning from, it's like, why are you getting paid like so much money? Why am I paying you all this money? What are you teaching me I'm going to use, But
and especially right now. I mean, Zoom University.
Oh, I think that's so
Same
fucked
price.
up. That is the biggest robbery. I mean,
It's a highway robbery, bro.
No, it's worse than highway. It's
Immoral.
like fucking universal. And what's crazy
Yeah.
to me is, when COVID happened, I wasn't in school, obviously, but like I was asking my buddies, like Karen, for example, and he goes up to he does school, and I was like, oh, they reducing your guys' tuition prices? He's like, nope. I'm like, oh my god,
Fuck no.
which is just crazy. to me.
Yeah, I considered taking over the summer. I was like, because we had spring, of course. Spring was all Zoom, and basically the classes weren't prepared to do that, so it was kind of like just like so low effort finishing out the semester, because they were all like, show up to the Zoom once a week and you can pass, you can finish out.
Yep.
But then in the summer, like gearing up for fall, I was like, oh man, I do not want to go back to school.
Right.
Ultimately, it was one of those things that was like very similar to my sophomore year, when I was just like not feeling, or my freshman year rather, when I was not feeling school at all. And I was like, in the summer, I was like, well, I'll have my degree. I was like, had this sort of promise that I was going to be able to make this film.
Yeah.
You know, there was this opportunity maybe that could happen off purpose, and so it was like, well, fuck it, I'll go back,
Right.
make this film, and that's what made it worth it. Because if I didn't have off purpose and I wasn't making a film, and I just had classes, I probably wouldn't have been able to stick with it. I definitely would have had to take a break.
Yeah, I mean, I think what was worse for me, man, because when I was doing journalism classes, the thing that I really didn't like about it, and I kind of understand why, is a lot of the classes structured it where everybody writes the same, talks the same, interviews the same. There's no room for, and I get you have to be kind of unbiased with it. But what really kind of pushed me over the edge for it was the school newspaper. And that was like the one outlet that I had where they let you be creative. And it wasn't related to like politics or anything. We were running this show in like called the Daily Does. We go around to different campus clubs and do their activities. And I mean, this is such a cool fucking concept. And you would put this out on Facebook and all this. And I'm like, this is such a cool concept. And I would, the guys that I was with, Brad and Jacob, they didn't have too much control over it. But I'd be pitching all these ideas to the editor-in-chief and, the head editor, the exec, whatever, all these higher ups. And was basically told, because you're a first-year student, sorry, we can't take this idea. Not that there's anything wrong with it, just first-year student. And I'm like, you know what, dude, fuck this. Like, what am I doing here if I'm not allowed to put an idea out and the only reason we're not taking it is because we're first year? It's like, fuck you. And wow. I think that's what really pushed me over. And looking back on that decision, I think it was right. But what I'm finding, at least now for myself, is this is the field I want to go into. But everywhere you apply, it's like you need the degree in filmmaking. You know what I mean? Or production or whatever, which sucks fucking balls, man. Because I hate that idea that if you have a degree, you must be capable in this, which more or less is that same. But I think you'd agree, because I'm sure you've met a lot of people that are in your field that, yes, they're filmmaking students, but either A, that's not what they want to do, or B, it's like they don't put the effort in, and they're, I don't know what the word, they're like a bunch of Goombas, they're just riding the train along, and it's like
oh, dude. Yeah, you would be right about that. Yeah. I mean, there's some people in film classes that I've taken that, like, I was like, why are you here in film class and you don't even want to like show up to our shoot that you're the director for? Like, why? What are you doing here? And like one of this, for instance, one of my film, actually like my only like real fiction production class, the one that I made Too Much for my short film from 2018. We had the first assignment was just like a shorter form short, and we were like assigned roles, and this dude was the director, and he was like complaining about how it took too much time and complaining about just literally everything, and just had no sense for how to make a film.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, dude, you need to go do something else.
Yeah, I mean, getting your foot in that door is the fucking hardest thing. Because I know, for example, if you're like a film production company, dude, you can give me the shitty, I'll clean the fucking floors for you, okay? I don't care what it is, but let me be in that space where I can learn from people that have got 10, 20, 30 years, so I can just give me the chance, Mm-hmm. And like, I wish that there was a university that was, like just a filmmaking school. I don't have to take biology, because if there was a guarantee I didn't have to take those things, I think I would go back to school at a heartbeat,
Yeah.
But knowing that I would have to go and not redo those classes, but still take a handful more of those classes, and still on top of that, pay the tuition. It's like, that's the one thing that's kind of off-putting. So, but that's what's good about film. You don't necessarily need a degree. You got to still put the work in. It's not like, again, going back to medical field for a second, it's not like being a doctor where you kind of need to do all the steps. So,
yeah, that's to say there's a film degree, like certain filmmakers, like their entire lineup of films, like all the films they make. Like you watch a Cassavetes film, right? You watch all his films, you have to some extent a film degree, and then you watch like him talk about his films, and you watch other people talk about his films, and like you've gained so much knowledge that a lot of times a film class won't give you.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, I think what's weird with school, especially college, it's not that it's expected, but well, I'd say it is. Like once you're done with high school, the expectation roughly is that you're going to go off to some sort of further schooling to then pick a major. And I don't necessarily agree that that's the best course of action for not only everybody, but for some fields too, you know. Because, at least for journalism's sake, I think you learn a lot more if you're out in the field reporting or, you know, apprenticeshipping. God, it's a hard word to pronounce. But I don't know. We'll see what happens to Ben Smlatic. We'll find out, you know, 20 years down the line if I'm in Alaska or something, or if I'm on the side of the road begging for money. Hopefully not.
That's where I'll be. Yeah.
You think so? No, I don't think so. I think you got a good mind for film. I think you'll probably do okay. Again, like I said.
Yeah. I'm just gonna do whatever it takes to keep making films.
Yeah.
Stories.
Scrub the floors if you have to, you know.
Yeah. If that's pocket change on the side of the street, then it's pockets change on the side of the street.
Well, it really is, yeah, that struggling artist kind of vibe, you know, like you live in an apartment, no furniture, you know, one shitty desk with a notebook. You know what, and oddly enough, I kind of aspire for that kind of aesthetic because
I think that's very, like, there's a lot of integrity in living that way because it's you and your brain and your pure ambition.
Yeah, that's so true.
And it's up to you and nobody else.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what's good about.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say that's what's good about college because you know, like, online class right now sucks and everything, but it gave me the time that I needed to work on Off Purpose. So like, it was just me against this task, and the task was make a film called Off Purpose, and I couldn't have done it if it was in-person classes. I really don't think I mean, I would have. It probably wouldn't have been as good, and I wouldn't have gotten any sleep. Yeah. I literally wouldn't have gotten any sleep if it wasn't for online classes. And so there's the aspect of college that it sets you up. Like, you have classes, right? You're getting educated, but you do have plenty of opportunity for plenty of time and opportunity to like really go out and get things done. But you don't have to. And the people who don't utilize that and see that and aren't getting after it are essentially wasting their time, and that's why it isn't for everyone.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe go to UCLA or something. I don't know if they.
That's
weird. I looked at their tuition. I was so curious. Who knows? I'm pretty sure I know. I don't think they're taking me. I looked at their out of state tuition. It's like $40,000 a semester.
It's a lot of money. I think that's what Iowa's is out of state. It's something nuts.
Yeah,
but UCLA is. I mean, you don't need to go to film school.
No,
and I wouldn't even consider Iowa film school.
Right.
Like, it's more of just like cinema studies,
right.
And you can take a couple production classes. But what Iowa really is I mean, it's a writing school. The art school is pretty good too, but besides the business program, I mean, as far as liberal arts go, it's a writing school. I mean, so that's why I added a writing certificate on major and minor because I realized I needed to capitalize on that, and that's been good. Right. That's why I've learned the most.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. Life is weird. I'd love to see where we end up 10, 20 years from now. You know, 30, maybe we can like.
Yeah, it's gonna be strange.
I'll go back to the Facebook post from 2012. If you ever blow up, I'm gonna flex that picture. I'll be like, yeah, this is me with Josiah Trost in what was that, 7th grade, 8th grade, 8th grade, Mr.
8th grade.
Yes, yeah. Jesus.
Vice versa, man. I'm gonna be like, well, this was me in XX back in 2013.
No, I mean, ideally, what I would love, I don't think. Well, we'll see. I honestly, I don't know. No, I don't want to blow up. I think fame is a weird thing. It's like that imposter syndrome, you know. That's the one thing I didn't really mention was like when you do YouTube, it's like a bunch of short films, but like you have to make 3 or 4 like a week.
Yeah.
And that's its own kind of weird thing. You know what I mean?
Oh, quantity over quality. and that's not what you really want out of film. You want quality over quantity for film.
Right. Well, and I mean that's the hard part about it too, is like you want to have a relatively active YouTube channel, but if like for Off Purpose, for example, it takes you like a year to make the film because you don't want to rush the filming, but at the same time, you got to be putting something else out there, and it's like you got to juggle like five different fucking balls in your hand, and I don't know. Yeah, it's an odd one. I would like.
What is.
Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say that's what's so difficult about putting out a short film right now, is because as a medium, short film is so oversaturated on the internet. Everyone's sick of short films, and everyone who I know who's like older in video production is like, okay, short film, yeah, this fucking guy is making a short film. I bet it's going to be garbage like the 50 other I've seen every year.
Right.
And not to mention it's 30 minutes compared to everyone's attention span right now. And it's an actual production. It's something that like took time and isn't like a YouTube video where it's like quick cuts, interesting things, 10 minutes, and we're done. And I think the general attitude towards short film and like really things that have taken a while to make, for most people, I shouldn't say, and this isn't everybody, but for most people, I think it's really hard market to get. Like people just look at the runtime and be like, fuck that, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Forget it. I'll just go sit on my phone for 30 minutes. Twitter, like,
yep.
It's really hard to pull that time out. And that's the kind of phase that I'm entering right now. It's like, please watch the film. Like, please.
Yeah. I mean, I think I was going to mention this earlier. I just never got around to it. I think that at least how I'm seeing it, and I can only really speak kind of from YouTube, but I've worked with a few people that I won't name names because I shouldn't. But I worked with a few people over the years that their focus wasn't really on the art or the quality of the video. Their focus was much more on the numbers that the video could potentially do, the clickability of it,
right. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. And it's really weird to me. I feel like we're diverting away more and more from admiring the masters of fields to admiring these, how would you word it, these kind of loudmouth or these very clickable people that are just they're not good at anything. They're just fucking annoying, but they're really good at they got these kids audiences. They're making millions, and like kids today, they all want to be a YouTuber. And a couple of years ago for me, I was like, oh yeah, I want to do that. But when I started like really developing, I realized that lifestyle itself is number one. It's really fake, and it's not authentic at all. But it's also like you become obsessed with numbers, and your focus is taken much less and less time is spent on your creativity and the quality of your product. It's more like, okay, well, what are the people going to like? How can I make this? You know what I mean? And it's I don't know, it gets toxic, man. So
there's certainly that aspect to it, but I think there's a subset of culture or the people at large who are scrolling through whatever social media that are excited by the new things because they can tell this is different from what everybody else is retweeting and reposting and liking.
Right.
And so when people are given that opportunity to like, but it's so easy to ignore. But like, okay, here's a song that I made. It's like, it's really different. It's new. It's on SoundCloud. People just scroll past it. But it's like, if more people take that opportunity to, try it out, more people will see it, and then it catches buzz, right? I don't, that's how things work. But
yep.
I think there's something to be said about the community that you can create with a film or any sort of media text, because there is a growing number of people, I think, that are sick of the onslaught of the same homogenized bullshit that is on every social media page, every Snapchat. It's like, okay, fucking just the most garbage shit you can think of. And then if something's different and it looks cool, then I think you're kind of reaching a community or inadvertently creating a community.
Yeah, I think that's what's difficult now, though. Is it's so difficult to be. Well, it's I mean, in theory, it's not difficult to be unique because we're all fucking unique, you know. So in some way, shape, or form. But I think to catch that, I think that's more like with marketing. That's just if your marketing's good, you can make a really shitty video, do well in numbers or do well in watch time, whatever you care about. If your marketing, you got good marketing, you're great. But that kind of circles back to the whole, like with off purpose, for example. I think it's worth a lot more than 155 views, right? If you're going to count it off that. But what's difficult about that is like your channel's got like 5 subscribers, right? You have the whole fucking algorithm to go around with too. It's like, I mean, I hope that I'm wrong, but it's like I don't think it'll ever get 1 million views, right? Which sucks because it's like there's other shit that's on the internet, for example, or other, and we'll call it art or work or whatever because it's all digital media that you know has like 5-6 million views, and it's some dude shitting in a fucking cup or something, something stupid. Right. But you know what I'm trying to say. I'm sure that's not actually on YouTube. I hope I'm actually wrong on that. I don't think that would be allowed. But yeah, it all kind of goes back to that whole, you make the art kind of for yourself, but it's like you want people to see it in some shape or form. You want people to acknowledge that it exists and have them criticize it or compliment it or whatever. And it's like, I can't tell you, dude, how fucking discouraging it is when you put something out. At least in my case, like you work really fucking hard. Like imagine off purpose, but like maybe 2 times, like, not quite a year length, but like take that, you know what I'm talking about. Take that work ethic that you had and put that into something, and then you release it and it gets like 2 views, but you think it's really good. Like you're fulfilled on the inside. You made this, but it's like no one's seen this, and I don't know. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah.
But anyway, 2:07 now. I got to go to Texas Roadhouse at 4. So excuse Texas Road. Yeah, I'm gonna go with my sister. She got herself a 4.1 GPA. So.
Ooh,
nobody in the family gave a shit, so I was like, well, they cared, but they were like, oh, good job. And I was like, she felt really bad. She's like, yeah, they were getting on me for not getting good grades, and then I get good grades and I get a good job. I'm like, okay, we'll go take it at Texas Roadhouse.
Nice.
But before I let you go, I do, if you have anything that you'd like to, obviously I'm going to link Josiah's video in the bio. Please go and watch it. Go give him a subscribe. Check out everybody that is in the credits as well, because I mean they're kind of not geniuses yet, but they're like very, very good at that craft. Well, maybe some of them. Well, the guys who did the sound, they're on their way, pretty fucking great. But everybody in that production, please go check out the film. Josiah, if you have anything else that you'd like to let the people know or link, now's your time, my friend. This is your time to shine.
Support independent film. Take a chance with something different. And actively search for it. I was kind of touching on this, but appreciate the different things, and I guarantee you'll have better insight, better takeaways, and become a more rounded, more interesting person. And yeah, that's it.
I was gonna say I'll probably link your Twitter or Instagram. I'm not sure which one you're more active on. It looks like Twitter, but I'll link on both.
Twitter for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, everybody, please check out my boy Josiah, please. And like you said, yeah, support your local creators in general, but support local film as well. Because I don't know, stop giving your support to these shitty Jake Paul wannabes, and turn your attention to people that are well worth the time, if you will. So with that being said, thank you so much once again, Josiah, for coming on. Thank you, folks, for if anybody, if anybody, no, thank you. The credit or the honor is all mine. But thank you.
Well, I'm glad. This was awesome to be able to talk about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought it'd be really cool just to kind of, and I don't have like some fucking massive following, but it's just, I think it's cool still to just kind of talk about it. And I mean, what I'm so surprised about is how naturally it flowed. I think this is maybe the most naturally flowing podcast I've had so far. And I think it helped that we had a subject, of course. But I think what's important to note, or at least what I took away from it, it's like you have 2 people that are very passionate about something. And I just don't think it was very difficult for us to have a conversation about it, So, like I said, thank you for coming on, because it's like I don't get this opportunity to talk to people that, number one, care this much about film, but number two, you know, have kind of done the things that you've done and released a fucking movie about it. And I just think, you know, I know it's a big opportunity and like a big honor for me to have you on here rather than you being on here, if that makes any sense.
Well, no, it really is. I mean, it's awesome to like have an opportunity to talk about everything that I've done to somebody who is interested in both, like, you know, interested, of course, in the realm of just like, oh, you know, it's cool, but also like what you can learn from it, because I've learned a lot and I just want to share it. And it is, you know, there's a lot to be said about the value of podcasts and long form conversation, because for both people talking and people listening, it puts a lot of things into perspective.
Oh yeah. I mean, we sucked each other off quite a bit at this end here. And if anybody's made it to the end, I'd like, if you could please just leave a comment about how many tallies, like get a tally mark of how many times I complimented Josiah or the film. I'm very curious. I'll probably do it myself. Fuck it. But anyway, with that being said, folks, thank you for once again stopping by. So I think it was episode 8. For those of you who are wondering, these come out every Monday, so this should be up tomorrow. So they're filming it on a Sunday. Sorry for the lack of episodes on the past couple of weeks. Getting guests on here sometimes is a bit difficult. But with that being said, everybody, have a good rest of your night or day. Or maybe if this is evening for you, maybe you're watching this during Christmas. Hug your loved ones.
Happy Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. We'll cover all the holidays.